Bhakti Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Guru Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namte Gurti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Prem Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Shama Kumara Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Navati Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Samavita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to the Son of the devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru. All glories to Shri Guru. All glories to Prabhupada. So we'll start from reading from Preaching is the Essence. What did you guys read yesterday? We don't have the sticker here like we usually do.
Well, we don't have a sticker here. Hasn't been there in a while.
We had so many of them.
We're just jumping around.
The key to successful preaching is in sincerely serving Lord Chaitanya and following the instructions of the Acharya. We read that this morning. So, I'm going to read the one after that. Without being empowered by Krishna, one cannot preach. The empowered preacher can raise the whole world to Krishna consciousness. Srila Ramananda Roy replied to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "My Lord, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you like, you can cause even a wooden doll to dance. I see that the truths regarding transcendental mellow that you have expounded through my mouth are all explained in the writings of Srila Rupa Goswami. Because of it causes mercy toward your devotees. You want to describe the transcendental pastimes of Vrindavan. Anyone empowered to do this can bring the entire world under your influence." Who's speaking right now? Who's speaking? Who spoke this? Yes. This passage parallels the statement Krishna Sakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravartan, which means that unless empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, one cannot spread the holy name of the Lord throughout the entire world. Under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, pure devotee can preach the holy name of the Lord, so that everyone may take advantage of this facility and thus become Krishna consciousness. This is actually a very important point that should be understood in full, that Krishna Sakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravartan, that unless one is empowered directly by Krishna, then one would not be able to spread Krishna consciousness and or to speak of spread Krishna consciousness throughout the whole world. So, like Prabhupada used to say that, we can see if one is actually empowered by how much people he's actually bringing to Krishna consciousness. The quality of one's preaching is determined by the fruits of one's labor, and how Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers were sent to London, and they didn't bring back any fruits. So, as when Prabhupada came here to the West, he brought back so many fruits to India. His dancing white elephants used to call them. So it's understood that because Srila Prabhupada was empowered directly by Krishna, directly by his spiritual master. Why? Because he he always says that my only qualification is that I have unflinching faith in my spiritual master. And due to this quality alone, that he has unflinching faith in the order of his spiritual master, that he is actually able to do the impossible. The circumstance that he's, came here to the West with nothing, and yet he, came back to India with the whole Western, hippies, is something that was completely unheard of. And it was, so many people discouraged them in India, like, Swamiji, you're old, what are you gonna do? And, the West, you're just gonna die. Even his godbrother said, what are you doing? You're just gonna rot and you're just gonna die. You're not gonna do anything successful. But due to his unflinching faith in the order of his spiritual master, he was unwavering. He was so determined to fulfill that order that he showed that actually one who has firm faith in the order of the spiritual master can do what seems impossible and make it possible. So I'm going to continue to the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We're reading from the first chapter, first canto, second chapter, 33rd verse. So please come to the text so we can repeat the slokas together. 33rd.
1, 2, 33.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Asaguna Mayer Bhaver Bhuta Suksmendriyatmabhi Swadnirmiteshu Nirveshta Bhungte Bhuteshu Tadguna. Asaguna Mayer Bhaver Bhuta Suksmendriyatmabhi Swanirmiteshu Nirveshta Bhungte Bhuteshu Tadguna. Asaguna Mayer Bhaver Bhuta Suksmendriyatmabhi Swanirmiteshu Nirveshta Bhungte Bhuteshu Tadguna. Please repeat.
Asaguna Mayer Bhaver Bhuta
Suksmendriyatmabhi
Swanirmiteshu
Nirveshta
Bhungte
Bhuteshu Tadguna. Asaguna Mayer Bhaver Suksmendriyatmabhi Swanirmiteshu Nirveshta Bhuteshu Tadguna.
Asaguna Mayer Bhaver Swanirmiteshu Nirveshta Bhungte Bhuteshu Tadguna.
Asaguna Mayer
Bhaver
Bhuta
Suksmendriyatmabhi
Swanirmiteshu
Nirveshta Bhuteshu Tadguna. Asaguna Mayer Bhaver
Bhuta Suksmendriyatmabhi
Swanirmiteshu Nirveshta Bhungte Bhuteshu Tadguna. You could try, Jeremy? You could try, Nimai? 1:233. Srila Prabhupada said that actually we chant the Sanskrit repeatedly so that we can actually learn the verse while we're chanting the Sanskrit. We shouldn't just chant whimsically, but we actually try to learn these verses of the Bhagavatam. Asal gunamayar bhave Bhuta sukshmendriyatmavi Swanirmiteshu nirvishto Bhukte bhuteshu tatgunan. Also, that Paramatma, Gunamaye, influenced by the modes of nature, Bhavai, naturally, Bhuta, created, Sukshma, subtle, Indriya, senses, Atmibhihi, by the living beings, Swanirmiteshu, in his own creation, Nirvishta, entering, Bhunkte, causes to enjoy, Bhuteshu, in the living entities, Targunan, those modes of nature. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A super soul enters into the bodies of the created beings who are influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by subtle mind. Purport. There are 8,400,000 species of living beings, beginning from the highest intellectual being, Brahma, down to the insignificant ant, and all of them are enjoying the material world according to desires of the subtle mind and the gross material body. The gross material body is based on the conditions of the subtle mind. The senses are created according to the desire of the living being. The Lord as Paramatma helps the living being to get material happiness, because the living being is helpless in all respects in obtaining what he desires. He proposes and the Lord disposes. In other words, man proposes and God disposes. And in another sense, the living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord. They are therefore one with the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the living beings in all varieties of bodies have been claimed by the Lord as his sons. The sufferings and enjoyments of the sons are indirectly the sufferings and enjoyments of the Father. Still, the Father is not in any way affected directly with the suffering and enjoyment of his sons. He is so kind that he constantly remains the living being as Paramatma and always tries to convert the living being towards the real happiness. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. I offer my most respectful humble obeisances to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And I offer my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord before me. If by their mercy I may be able to speak something which is satisfying to Guru and Krishna, then let it be so. So, the translation, I'm going to repeat it one more time. The super soul enters into the bodies of the created living beings who are influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by the subtle mind. This sounds like that one verse of Bhagavad Gita. It's very similar to what's that? That the jivas that they're influenced by the three modes of material nature and do they're being influenced by the three modes of material nature. They've been wondering in so many bodies, life after life, and it's mainly due to the desire, and by this desire, so many things have came up. It's said that actually that the Lord cannot that our desires cannot be fulfilled unless it's sanctioned by the Lord. So although we have desires to think that by our own doing our desires can be fulfilled is actually ignorance, and it's this is due to our being under this bodily concept of life, simply to think that whatever I can do by my own endeavor, that I can accomplish that. But actually, the Lord here says that that the Lord, as Paramatma, helps the living being to get material happiness, because the living being is helpless. He's helpless, Prabhupada is saying, in all respects, in obtaining what he desires. Yoyam tanum bhakta. So, actually, those who worship the demigods expect, they're actually expecting by their own work, by their worship of these demigods, they're expecting that if I can do this rut or this sacrifice for this demigod, that I can fulfill my desires. And this is mere foolishness that they think in such a way, because Krishna is saying that he fulfills all desires, even the desire of the demigods to fulfill the desire of the jiva that is performing a sacrifice for his own material enjoyment is actually only sanctioned by the Lord himself. So nothing can actually be done outside of Krishna's will. Nothing in this world can be, it said that not even a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Lord. So if a blade of grass cannot move without the will of Krishna, then what to speak of our desires and our life, and the way that we desire should be only according to what Guru desires, and ultimately what Guru desires is what Krishna desires. So to understand who's the bona fide spiritual master, to actually have a right desire, we have to understand what Krishna desires. And Krishna clearly says what he desires in Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedic scriptures, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And he says that Sarvam dharma parityaja mamekam saranam raja aham tvam sarva pabhyam mokshe yasmami masuchaha. That actually, I desire that all living beings surrender to me, because ultimately Krishna, as Paramatma, is situated in the heart, and he's saying that since time immemorial, he's constantly remaining within the living being as Paramatma, and always tries to convert the living being towards the real happiness. So Krishna's in his heart, and Krishna is always desiring for the welfare of the jiva. That's why actually we have no friend in this material world besides Krishna, because Krishna is the only friend who knows actually how to give us real happiness. Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarva lokam maheshwaram suritam sarva bhutanam hrideshnu santum richati datam santum richati. That if one wants to attain real happiness and real peace, he must surrender to Krishna. It's not any ifs, ands, or buts. I may surrender to Krishna partially or conditionally. But no, it has to be completely focus at the lotus feet of Krishna and no any other desire, because if there's any other desire, then that desire would actually Krishna would see that desire and he'll fulfill that desire. So that's why it's, it said hoitika bhakti, that we should have no other desire, no gyan, no karma, no yoga. Anya bhilasita sunyam jnana karmanya navritam anukulina Krishna rusilanam bhakti uttama. That real bhakti should not be tinged with any desire for any material enjoyment. Or to speak of yoga, yoga, people think that yoga is bhakti. I mean, like Ashtanga yoga, yoga to, control the mind, or, to make the body fit. This is not, this is not bhakti. It's, and, to perform yoga in the name of bhakti is actually the biggest offense. Because Prabhupada came to chop down all these misconceptions that yoga is for liberation, even that these body gymnastics are for being able to raise ourselves to a higher platform of goodness in life, and to become more spiritual. But actually this yoga actually makes us more conditioned by the laws of material nature. It makes us more enwrapped in the body concept of life. So, actually to teach this yoga, I'm going to just focus on this point a little bit. It's not really in its purport, but it's a quite important point that I've been wanting to share. That this yoga, that Prabhupada tried so hard to teach people that actually the real yoga is to link up with Krishna, to understand that Krishna in the Paramatma, in the heart, is actually, to realize that Krishna is in everybody, and that Krishna is outside of everybody also, that he's simultaneously within and without everything at the same time. And to worship the Supreme Being in his absolute form consists of yoga. Not to perform any bodily gymnastics, to do this is a great offense to Srila Prabhupada, to preach anything that's not bhakti, to teach anything that people might say that may help bhakti, but bhakti is independent of any karma and jnana yoga. One beautiful part that Prabhupada gives here is another sense. Living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord, and therefore they are one with the Lord. Many Mayavadis and impersonalists think that we're all one. Even Prabhupada says it right here. That since we're all parts and parcels of the Lord, therefore we're one with the Lord. So how can we preach against that? What's that verse? From the 15th chapter, that we're all parts and parcels of the Lord. That being parts and parcels of the Lord, we are all like bolts and screws of the great machine. And if we're not attached to this machine, then we have no purpose in our existence. But since we're since we're actually trying to serve Krishna, therefore we feel some actual happiness and actually peace, because we're actually trying to be a part of Krishna's family, which is like trying to be like, trying to rescrew our, our bolts or nuts back to the machine. If the bolt is separate from the machine, it's useless. But if the bolt or screw is attached to the machine, then it has a very significant use. So people say that, we're all one in quality with the Lord, and after attaining, full realization, then we actually become one with the Lord, and then we can become God. But actually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the most sublime philosophy that can easily defeat this, and people who are sincere will accept immediately that actually, that the quality and the quantity are different. It's a Chinta Veda Veda Tattva, that simultaneously we're one with the Lord in all respects in quality, but that doesn't mean we're the same with the Lord in quantity. Because only Krishna has all six opulences of riches, fame, beauty, strength, renunciation, and so on, can have these to the unlimited extent, but the individual jiva cannot have these qualities to the unlimited extent. So therefore, in that sense, in quality, we're one with the Lord, being parts and parcels of Him. But we will not necessarily. It's impossible to become one with the Lord in quantity also. It's people think in this world that the material cosmos have just manifested from Big Bang Theory, or there's a new thing called stardust. That some dust from the sky fell down and just created the entire material creation. But actually, this material creation was actually created by the glance of Vishnu, and first by the glance of Vishnu, the bhava came, the material nature, and then from the material nature came the three modes of material nature, which is goodness, passion, and ignorance. Asa guna mayer bhaver, that that being influenced by the modes of the material nature, it's then from the nature became the qualities of nature, which is bhuta suksmendriya. That the bhuta suksmendriya are the qualities of the nature, and then there's the creation of the ego, which comes after the qualities of nature. After the ego, then comes the intelligence. That there is a sequence by which this material world was created, and it's so scientific that Prabhupada made it so scientific that any person with a little sumedha saha can understand that this world is not created simply by simply by chance.
but actually there's a brain behind it. And then after the ego, there's the intelligence. After the intelligence is the mind. And then after the mind was created, the sky, the air, from the sky, from the air to fire, and finally to water and land. So after all these were created, then Bhuta Sukshmendriya, the object of the senses, which is the senses, were created. And sense enjoyment comes automatically after that, because if there's no sense enjoyment, which is considered to the objects of sense enjoyment, then the senses won't have anything to apparently enjoy, or do not enjoy within this material world. And then from the sense enjoyment, the form is created of the objects, and finally taste and smell were created. So Prabhupada is saying that there is a great machinery. It is not automatically has come out, but behind all this energetic work, the energies, different energies are working. This whole material creation, that there is a brain. It is not so-called evasive understanding that it just came on about by itself. But Krishna says, Maya dakshena prakrite suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kunteya jagat iparivartate, that I am pushing the buttons. Krishna says behind everything that I am the one pushing the buttons. It is so subtle and quick and so immediate that it's impossible to explain. We think that it is automatically done by nature, but actually, we may say nature, but only due to our ignorance we say that it's nature acting. But actually, we cannot explain how the nature is working. We give an evasive reply, just like a flower is coming from a seed, and then from the seed the tree is coming, and then from that flower the fruit is coming. So we simply give an evasive reply about nature, it is coming, but we cannot explain how it is coming. But there is an explanation in the Vedas. It says that just like in this tape recording machine, press the record button and automatically everything starts, acting, recording. But we don't know the cause of that. But actually, there is a great manipulation of the machine. We do not know. As soon as it's not working, because we're ignorant, we go to the mechanic. Just find out what is wrong. So everything has a creation. We do not see anything within this material world, any objects actually that have been just came about. Like this chair, this table, these books, this phone. Everything has a creator by which at one time it came out from. So ultimately, we have a creator, which is our Father. Then our Father had a creator. So if we go back from time immemorial, we can understand that the creator of this, that there has to be some creator of this universe, some creator of this material cosmos. So ultimately, to understand who that creator is, we have to go through sadhu, sastra, and guru. Like after Śrīla Prabhupada was going to leave India, I believe it was Mukunda or Harigriva, one of the two, they went to 26th Avenue. And Prabhupada gave his last talk there at the 26th Avenue before going to India. And he just had a heart stroke, and they were afraid that they'd never see him again, that he'd leave his body. And they were freaking out, it was like a big, like a serious mood. And and one disciple went up to him, started crying at his feet. So the Prabhupada, I want to get to Krishna with nobody in between. I want to get to Krishna with nobody in between. And we just patted him on the head. It's okay, my son. Krishna would fulfill all of your desires. So, he knew that if one is actually sincerely seeking Krishna, sincerely looking to understand the absolute truth, that he'll come to the conclusion that Krishna will give him the intelligence. Titesham satanam yuktanam bhajita priti bhurvigam is if one is actually doing proper bhajan, if one is actually sincerely chanting Hare Krishna and properly rendering devotional service, then Krishna would give him the intelligence that you have to surrender to a bona fide representative of myself to understand me. So to be able to come to the conclusion that there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have to hear from the lotus mouth of a pure devotee. And and therefore, wow, I was just in a previous verse in the purport, in the last paragraph, it's saying, therefore one is required to approach a proper spiritual master with receptive ears only. I was just spacing out. I was just thinking, like, Krishna, help me. And right here it's saying, therefore one is required to approach a proper spiritual master with receptive ears only. And thus divine existence is gradually realized. Who is that divine existence? That's Krishna. Krishna can be realized through one who is sincerely hearing the message of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The difference between anomality, basically the difference between being an animal and a human lies in this process only. A human being can hear properly, whereas an animal cannot. An animal is instructed so many times what is good and what is not. And one who's actually following in the footsteps of the bona fide acharyas would only repeat what is said, and that message is also pure in itself. So one should hear with rapt attention the message being spoken in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And also, if one is sincerely desiring to understand the absolute truth, then he cannot be an animal. He has to hear with rapt, Prabhupada says, with rapt attention. That if we actually want to come to understand Krishna, Krishna can be understood simply by hearing, but one has to be hearing with, with ears of devotion. Just like Lord Brahma says that, Krishna can be seen with the eyes of devotion, with the salve of love. Pramanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santa sadeva hridayeshwari lokayanti yam shama sundaram achinta guna swarupam govindamari pujasham tamahambhajam. That the lotus feet and the lotus form of Sri Govinda can only be seen with eyes which have been anointed by the salve of love. And these eyes can only be developed by one who is hearing the message of the Bhagavat from the proper source with rapt attention. And it's nityam Bhagavata seva, that this should be done as a daily affair. We can hear this messages for our entire life. Life after lives we can be hearing. But if one is not hearing properly, just like one is not chanting properly, he's being inattentive towards chanting, this is also kirtan. What we're doing here is also kirtan. So if this kirtan is not being performed properly either, what to speak of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna kirtan and Hari Katha, they're actually the two most important aspects of devotional service, of kirtan. So if we're being attentive while performing this Krishna kirtan, this Krishna katha, to hear Krishna katha, then it may take many births for us to come to realize the absolute truth as well. So Prabhupada, we got 10 minutes left. I'm going to just hit up on this one point, and then I'm going to ask for questions and answer for any questions. That if we really want to execute devotional service, there can't be any tinge of material desire. Actually, in Namachintamani.
Verse?
No, not in
Harinam
Chintamani, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions a very important point, that if one desires liberation, to go back to the spiritual world, because he's suffering from the material world, he's suffering in this place of misery, so he wants to go back home to Godhead. It seems like a very nice deal, but that's a material desire. But if one desires to go back home, back to Godhead, to render devotional service to Krishna, not simply just to become liberated and to become free from his material problems and anxieties, but to actually serve Krishna. Mother Radharani is always anxious to bring those close to serve Krishna. She's not so anxious for those who desire liberation, to become free from the sufferings of this material realm. She's anxious to engage those who want to engage in the service of Krishna. That's why we're constantly chanting Hare Krishna. Oh Krishna, oh Radharani, please engage me in your loving devotional service. Because until we come to the Brahmaputra platform, then we have not entered the realm of transcendental devotional service. Our devotional service, until we become free from the modes of material nature, Prabhupada says that the purpose may be served. So if we execute devotional service for some material happiness, the purpose may be served, but if you cannot rise to the transcendental platform, then we have not actually performed devotional service yet. But we should be very careful that we do not take to devotional service, which is tinged with material happiness. Even though we take it, still it is recommended that you prosecute. Go on with devotional service by regulative principles. Actually, if you're actually in pre-devotional service, sarva parivinirmuktam tatparam nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevinam bhakti uchate. Being freed from the interaction of the three modes of material nature, that is real transcendental stage of devotional service. When we're freed from the three modes of material nature. Sangunam samatit jahitan mamcha yo vyapicharena bhakti yogena sevete sangunam samatit jahitan brahma bhuya kapate. That will be cross the three modes of material nature, then we can actually begin our actual devotional service. Until then, we're simply praying to Krishna. Please engage me in your service. That's why we should always chant in this mood that I am, I'm so fallen. I'm a wretch. I have no taste for your holiness. I have no taste for your devotional service. Actually, Mother Jasoda gave up Krishna. She dropped Krishna just to go watch over the milk. So actually, we're not so clean to, serve Krishna directly or to see Krishna, but we want to enter into Krishna's devotional service, because Krishna's devotional service is much higher than Krishna. Is much higher than being directly with Krishna. The gopis are constantly separated from Krishna, but yet they're considered the most highest devotees, because by being separated from Krishna, their actual devotional service is intensified to such a degree that they cannot think anything of Krishna and they go mad after Krishna. So that's why this Sankirtan movement is actually following in the mood of the gopis. You know, because we're trying to bring others to Krishna. We're trying to engage in devotional service by the order of Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas, who are all Gopi Jana Vallabhas. They're all eternal residents of Vrindavan. They all came down to this material world to teach us how to perform devotional service and what mood to perform devotional service. That's why these bhajans by Bhaktivinoda Thakur are they're the most divine treasure that we can ever have, because they teach us how to enter into the right mood of devotional service. If one is not crying for Krishna, one cannot get Krishna. So therefore, by doing this, this book distribution, this Nam Sankirtan, is actually in the mood of separation. It's being separated from the association of Srila Prabhupada, being void of the great sangha that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all his associates, and Srila Prabhupada and his very dear disciples. To not have that association, is a great misfortune. That's why Narottam Das Thakur says, "Se sangha na paya kande narobdamo das." That being that it's how does he word it? But being separated from the association in who those devotees had Lord Chaitanya's sangha. I feel how does he say? I feel myself very, very. What's the word that he? What does he say? Basically,
says that I yearn for the association. That he laments that he is.
That he laments that he's not able to associate with those devotees. So we have not been able to associate with Srila Prabhupada, but we're being given a chance to render direct service to Srila Prabhupada by distributing his books. I'm sorry for not being able to give enough time for questions, but it's okay. I'm gonna end there. If there's any questions. If
Not a comment, actually, a question.
If not, we can continue for two more minutes on this point. Any questions? So it's, to be able to serve Srila Prabhupada through the Sankirtan mission, it's just like being with Srila Prabhupada. And although Prabhupada is not present before us, he can make himself present to those who have full faith in his instructions, and who follow it full-heartedly. To those who don't have full faith in his instructions, they waver in their devotional service, and they make so many other processes of devotion, of so-called bhakti, which is just covering what real bhakti is. And it's if this bhakti process is actually the most simple process by which we can attain the true lotus feet of Krishna. If we just follow simply what Prabhupada has given us, if we can somehow stick our lives through thick and thin and just stay with the process. At first, we'll just be practicing Vari Bhakti, which is following strictly, Prabhupada says very strictly, the 4 regulated principles, chanting Hare Krishna every single day. Then gradually, by the mercy of Guru, to become to the process and the level of Raganuga sadhana. Hare Krishna. All glories to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Krishna Prasad Prabhu ki
Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.